For those of you who have been to other candidate nights, these remarks may sound very similar, but since we're taping this and people will watch them, we want to make sure we deliver kind of the same message for each candidate forums. I think this is our fourth of 5 candidate forums that we are holding. The Woodland League has been, began in Woodland in 1975, and since that we've been holding candidate forums as a way to educate the electorate in the city of Woodland and the county about the different candidates running for office. Tonight we'll be holding the forum on the 3rd Congressional District, and there'll be one last forum tomorrow evening for the State Assembly District 4. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan political organization encouraging the informed and active participation of citizens in government. We thank you for coming out this evening as citizens to become informed. We influence public policy through education and advocacy, and the League has 2 separate and distinct roles. The first is what we're doing this evening, which is holding voter service citizen education forums, where information is presented and by the candidates that are running. We also present unbiased, nonpartisan information about elections, the voting process, and issues. And since in California, especially for state offices, there will be a different format for voting, we encourage you to become educated on that process. We hope to have some pamphlets this evening to hand out that explains the process, but they did not arrive. So we will have them available at the library and here at the Community and Senior Center for you to pick up. There are 2 propositions on the June ballot, and information on those measures is also available on the State League website. A second role is one of action and advocacy. Again, it's nonpartisan, but after study, we use our positions to advocate for and against particular issues in the public interest. The League has 5 adopted city and 6 county positions, which are on our local website, and the most recent county study was adopted after 2 years of study as one on climate change. This year we have begun a 2-year study on water, which is a very important issue for us, especially in Woodland. Next year, the state study will be on initiatives and referendums, and this study will begin in August. We're always interested in having members join us, so if you're interested, please talk to BJ and I. We'd be happy to have you join the League and work with us. I would like to now introduce Pat Butler, our Voter Service Chair, who will moderate the candidate forum this evening. We want to thank her for all her hard work in putting these forums together. Thank you.
Can you all hear me? We're having mic problems tonight, which is nice. As John said, this forum is the 4th. This forum is the 4th in 5 series that the League has provided. Tonight we're focused on the 5 candidates, although only 3 of them are here tonight, of the race for U.S. House of Representatives, the 3rd Congressional District. It's my pleasure to introduce to you tonight Supervisor Kim Vann, Colusa County Board of Supervisors and businesswoman, Representative John Garamendi, representing the 3rd Congressional District, and we're expecting Mr. Rick Tubbs, Solano County Reserve, Lieutenant Colonel in the Air Force Reserve, and pilot. Unfortunately tonight, the 2 other candidates, Tony Carlos, who's a Deputy District Attorney with the Sutter County District Attorney's Office, and Mr. Eugene Gray, Solano County businessman and martial arts instructor, were unable to attend. The format for this evening will include the candidate's opening statement, followed by their responses to the League questions. Next, we'll take a break, and during that time, we'll be collecting audience-generated questions. There's question cards up here in the front, or one of our League members, Christine, has on the card also. Additionally, The information on the League's guide for the written questions is posted. Wade, Channel 21 will be taping. Thank you very much for being here. That will be for rebroadcast on our local channel. The League timekeeper will be keeping our responses to the questions in the allotted time. So we'll go ahead and begin, and Supervisor Vann is going to do her opening statement. This is our high-tech digital timekeeping process.
I appreciate the different colors. I'll be able to keep track of it that way. Thank you all so much, and thank you to the League. I'm going to take this out. Okay. And thank you to the League for hosting this event. These are very important forums, and it's a great opportunity for everyone to come out and meet all the candidates. I'd like to start off by asking you all a question. How many of you, by a show of hands, believe that your grandparents thought that they were leaving a better America to your parents? I know I did. I did. How many of you believe that your parents thought they were leaving a better America to you? Now, how many of you believe, truly believe, that we are leaving a better America to our children and grandchildren? I see a few hands, but not too many. I think that's a great indication of how we all realize we are not on the right path. We have so many issues that we have to struggle with today. But the most important is getting this economy and jobs back up and running. We've got to rein in this national debt and spending. We've got to enhance and protect national security and protect Beale and Travis specifically, and make sure that our amazing men and women have the resources they need to protect us. We've got to start looking and doing serious regulatory reform, where we're getting regulations out of the way that do more harm to us than good. As a Colusa County Supervisor, one of my all-time favorite jobs, even though I had to have a full-time job in the public sector at the same time, we've been able to implement these policies. And by doing so, we've created jobs in our county and grown the economy. It is absolutely the most important thing that we can do in these next few years. We are at a pivotal point. We have two very distinct views. One group wants to grow the pie larger so that we all have more, and one group wants to redistribute the pie we have now. So I'm very pleased to be with all of you here this evening, and I look forward to answering your questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Congresswoman?
Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here to the League of Women Voters, and to all of you that are in the audience and watching on television. All of our lives are set along a path based on experiences that we've had, perhaps in school or after that. For Patty and I, when we left Berkeley, we went into Peace Corps. We were in Ethiopia, and we watched children without education. We saw people die of starvation, and we saw people die for lack of health care, unemployment, endemic. Our lives are set by experiences. Returning from Ethiopia, came back to the United States, and we saw problems here. Hunger, lack of health care, the issue of jobs. And over the years, Patty and I have decided that our life and our path is a path of service. That we were going to spend our time dealing with the problems of our communities, our state, and our nation. I've had the great honor of doing just that. Seniors, personal security, social security, Medicare, at risk. There are those that would privatize Social Security. There are those that would take Medicare and turn it over to the private insurance companies. In doing so, destroying one of the fundamental personal security issues that every American counts on having available to them when they turn 65. Jobs, we obviously have a problem. We had a problem created in the early 2000s of no regulation. The banking industry went berserk, and we had a collapse. We have to have jobs so we can put people back to work. My Make It in America agenda says if you're going to spend our tax money on whatever it happens to be, it is going to be spent on American-made equipment and on American jobs. Education, the most fundamental of any economic development program, is education. And nowhere more important than in this county with the great University of California, Davis, the community colleges, and the necessity of making sure that our education system is the best in the world. We're not even close to that. We need to have infrastructure. We need to make sure that we have the water systems, the flood systems, the highways, the transportation systems. We need to make sure that we are solid in our national security and not wasting any money, like continuing the war in Afghanistan. These are the things that have brought me to this job. These are the issues that are fundamental to me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Unfortunately, Mr. Tubbs has not arrived as yet, so we will go on to the lead questions. And the candidates drew lots for their speaking order, and Supervisor Vann was first to respond. So the first question for you is, identify the three most important issues in your view currently affecting Woodland and Yolo County, and what do you identify as the three most important issues affecting this area in the next 7 years? Describe your plans for addressing these issues.
Well, I think the three most important issues in Woodland and Yolo County will continue to be the most important issues, not only today, but in 7 years. Jobs in the economy, agriculture, and water. Those three items are the lifeblood of Yolo County and Woodland. This county has done a spectacular job in protecting its agricultural resources. We have to ensure that there is an ample water supply to be able to continue those activities in this county, while still allowing for good economic growth and job development in other industries. And we do that by having the government set the tone, not having the government create the jobs, but having the private industries that are in Woodland and Yolo County, having the government get out of their way and reduce taxes so that our small businesses and our entrepreneurs can grow these jobs and grow the economy in Yolo County. Agriculture has been under assault in this state. I've spent 3 years fighting for the protection of the Williamson Act program, one of the best conservation programs that exists, and we were unable to stop the state from reducing all the funds in that program. That's as good as conservation gets, and that's the best protection of ag lands in these counties, and we've lost that program. So we have to make sure and ensure that all the resources that the agricultural industry needs are available to them, and that we're allowing the value-added businesses that help grow the ag industry to be located here in Yolo County. And again, going back to water, we need to ensure this water supply. And we ensure it not by continuing to authorize studies, but we start down the path of authorization language for actual projects. Then we move on to the formal studies, and then we start to construct these storage facilities. Now, whether it's raising Shasta or it's building sites, storage is an absolute mandatory project. Our population isn't shrinking in this state. We're going to continue to grow, and our water supply is going to continue to diminish. Even the Yolo County Board of Supervisors are opposed to the Central Valley Flood Protection Plan without addressing these issues. So this is probably number 1 or 2 on the list behind jobs in the economy.
Thank you very much.
3 most important issues: jobs, jobs, and jobs. We're going to have to create an opportunity to put employees and employers back to work, and we can do it. We can do it with Make It in America agenda. Over the last 25 years, we've lost more than 40% of the manufacturing jobs in America. We can bring those back if we have wise government policies. Policies that eliminate tax breaks for corporations that send jobs offshore. Much of that has affected this area. Policies that would allow us to use our tax money to be spent on American-made equipment. If we're going to do solar projects and wind projects, if we're going to build bridges and roads, we're going to use American-made equipment. That's our tax money. Let's use our tax money to buy American. Rebuilding that policy will put thousands of people back to work. The San Francisco Bay Bridge is one of the prime examples of how not to do it. Steel made in China, thousands of jobs in China, jobs exported from here. Tax policy. Used to have taxes, a tax break for corporations to send jobs overseas. I voted to end that tax break. We need to have policies in place on making sure that we have an education system here. The University of California, Davis is a prime example of us, as a society, backing away from the support of education. We need to support that education. And so when it comes to student loans, why is it that we would allow a doubling of student loans, as was voted on in the House of Representatives by the other party in unison, to double student loans, and then quickly backing away from that serious mistake? Healthcare, we're talking about jobs in healthcare. Just today, the Affordable Health Care Act brought $5 million to this city to build a new community clinic here in this city. There are things that we can do, and seniors need to be protected. Seniors have worked their life. They have spent their time building this nation. They've spent their time putting aside money in Social Security and in Medicare for their services. And there are those who would privatize Social Security, and there are those who would also take Medicare and turn it over to the private insurance companies. I've been the insurance commissioner for 8 years in this state, and I understand that for insurance companies, it is profit before people. All kinds of discrimination take place. Age, if you're a woman, you're discriminated against because you have pre-existing conditions. Kids not allowed to get insurance. All of these things need to be addressed. So for Yolo County, for this city, it's jobs, and there are ways to do it. Make it in America, build our infrastructure, provide the water and flood systems that we need, and make sure that we're taking care of our seniors and our healthcare system is solid and in place. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Question number 2. What role do you think the federal government should play regarding water in California? Supervisor Vann?
The federal government plays a very important role in water in California. Not only will they authorize the creation of storage, they also need to be an appropriations partner. They need to assist in funding these very important infrastructure projects in our area. They need to partner with the state and the locals to not only ensure that this water supply is created, but it's delivered to all of the areas that need it in the state. Municipal water, industrial water, agricultural water, and environmental water. They play an integral role in that. And we need to make sure that they're moving along the same path that our local and state government is, so that we can all work together to ensure that we have a reliable water source, not only for Northern California, for the Bay Delta, and for Central California. We have to be able to partner with the feds, and they need to take the lead on this. And that will be one of my priorities once elected to the seat.
Thank you very much. Mr. Tubbs?
Yes, I apologize greatly.
Thank you very much for joining us. We have begun the forum, as you can see. So the opening statements have been given, and we are doing the questions right now. So we'll continue with the questions. Thank you. Councilman Hernandez, you want to take the next?
In 1986, we had great floods in 1986. My home is in Walnut Grove. That community was flooded. I saw my neighbors' houses go underwater and some disappear. I saw farmland that was unusable for almost 2 years. The federal government's role is absolutely critical in protecting our water supplies and protecting our homes, whether it's a flood or whether it is water down the river. That's the way it has been, and that's the way it's going to be. And so in Congress, we need to understand how we can carry out these projects. And it can be done, but it's going to have to be done in partnership with the local water agencies, the local flood control agencies, the state, and the federal government working in unison. I was the Deputy Secretary of the Department of Interior overseeing the Bureau of Reclamation, which controls about 50% of the water in Northern California. It's absolutely crucial that the representative representing this area understand water policy and all its intricate detail. You just can't say nice little words, but you've got to get down into the water and into the flood issues to understand what is actually happening. Right now, there is underway a program called the Bay Delta Conservation Program. It has the potential, and it's heading down a path to build a peripheral canal or a tunnel under the delta to take 15,000 CFS of water out of the river and deliver it to the Southern California pumps. It will destroy the delta in doing so, and it will provide no relief on the levees that are essential for the protection of agriculture and communities and infrastructure in the delta. It's imperative that we fight the BDCP, and if it's going to move forward, it moves forward in a way that actually protects the water of Northern California. Area of origin and other issues are of critical importance here. There is a fight every day in Washington to protect Northern California water from the Southern California water grabs. Less than 3 or 4 weeks ago, Governor Brown was in Washington, D.C. and said, I'm going to build the peripheral canal. I was at the meeting and I said, Governor, in 1982, I led the fight to stop the peripheral canal, and if I have to do it again, we will do it again. You will not destroy the delta, and you will not take the water of Northern California and deliver it to Southern California. Just this last month, a bill was passed by the Congress that would take 850,000 acre-feet out of the delta and deliver that water to the southern water users, literally destroying the environmental habitat of the delta. We have work to do. We need to understand the details of this, and we need to understand how critically important for this community flood and water protection are. There's a program underway now to deliver water to this community and simultaneously to provide flood protection.
Thank you very much. Mr. Tubbs, the second question is, what role do you think the federal government should play regarding water in California?
Okay, thank you very much. Again, I apologize for being late. I was up in Yuba City delivering flyers door to door, and I'm driving here, and I was going to be a couple minutes late. And so I'm going every bit of 65 miles an hour on the freeway, trying to make up those couple minutes. And I had about 20 yard signs in the back of the pickup. They went everywhere, and I had to make a decision. A great sign location on the freeway, or get here a little late. So I apologize, I picked up the signs. Anyways, a little bit about myself, and I'm going to answer this water issue because it's critical. It's one of my top 3 issues. I've been in the Air Force for 23 years this month now. I'm a Lieutenant Colonel, Squadron Commander, been flying airplanes around the world. I've been fortunate enough to go through a lot of schools, done a lot of practical problem solving in my career, a lot of leadership opportunities. And when we talk about water, I think it's leadership that we need. Now, I am going to tell you right now that both these people sitting up here with me right now are very smart on the water issue and will serve you well. What I will provide in addition to some of that is just the leadership. We've been not solving this problem for 30 years plus. Sitting on our hands, studying it to death, trying to figure out what's the best way forward. We need to pick something and go forward. I've boiled it down to we need increased storage, we need the supply, we need supply. Supply is the critical issue that will solve all the problems. We need a solution that will provide drinking water for the residents of California. Bring that fresh water into the delta, enough flow to come down to make sure it doesn't turn into a saltwater marsh. And we need enough water for our agricultural business in the state, not only for California, but for the country and the world. It's got to be an all of the above answer. And the way you do that is increasing the supply by growing your storage, by recycling water, and I'm even going to offer out there some desalination we can do in some of the larger population centers, San Diego, San Francisco, LA. Those are things we can do to increase the supply, to make sure that we have enough water for everything. Now, it's nice to say big words like that, but let me offer some solutions, some specifics that I'd like to see. A study just came out, and I gotta read it yet, but one of the ideas in this study was to increase the Shasta Dam by about 18 feet, almost doubling the supply up there. Great idea, let's go. Let's build the Auburn Dam. We shut it down in the early 80s, it would be a great supply of water. There are some engineering issues that we have to deal with a fault underneath, I understand, but it's the 21st century. We have to do things like this to increase the supply. Recycling water. When we have all this water on our lawns and in our businesses, we don't need potable water for that. We can recycle water and increase supply with thinking out of the box. Thank you very much, and again, I'm sorry, I'm looking forward to this night.
Thank you very much. The next question. Do you support the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act? Congressman, would you take that question first?
You shifted the order. No problem at all. Thank you. Thank you. A child died in my arms for lack of health care. A senior, 2 days ago, came to me and said, "They're not going to take away Medicare, are you? I can't live without it." Just today, the Affordable Health Care Act brought $5 million to this community to build a clinic so that those who do not have access to health care are able to get the health care they need. From the time I left college to this moment, I've spent virtually every day working on the health care issues of this state. I'm not about to back off that lifetime commitment. It's critical, not just to me and my work in my life, but to the people that I've represented throughout the state, across the nation, and in this district. The Affordable Health Care Act provided that $5 million. The Affordable Health Care Act provides some 2 million seniors in this state with preventative health care. And across the nation, some 30 million seniors with early detection. The Affordable Health Care has open clinics. The Affordable Health Care will provide 40 million Americans with health insurance. There are those that would have destroyed all of that. No money for the clinics, no money for preventive care, no money for Medicaid, $80 billion a year removed from Medicaid, most of which winds up taking care of seniors in nursing homes. You want to know where I stand? I stand right there, making certain that there is adequate health care for every single person in this nation. I'm now in Congress. I voted for the Affordable Health Care Act. And I will continue to support any effort that comes along to provide Americans with the proper health care they need. I don't ever want to go to a community, I don't ever want to go to somebody's home and have another child die for lack of health care. That's not the America I want to live in. The Affordable Health Care Act advances us on the road of providing every American with health care. It's critically important to repeal that bill and say we're going to somehow replace it, but never explain what you're going to replace it with, is not proper for the well-being of every single American.
Thank you very much. Mr. Tubbs?
Healthcare is critical to all of us, and something we need to pay attention to. A couple of things I'd like to say about American healthcare first. It's the best. It is the highest quality, and you have the best access. I mean, if I want to go to my doctor tomorrow, my great wife will be up at 7 in the morning to call Kaiser and say, my husband is feeling sick, he needs to be in. I'll probably get a 1 in the afternoon appointment. At worst, it'll be Friday morning. The American healthcare system is the best in the world. People come from all over the world to get here to use our medical system. It is expensive, and we need to work on it. But no, the Affordable Health Care Act was the wrong way to do it. And yes, one clear distinction between the congressman and myself is I will vote to repeal that act. Now, he says that we need to not repeal it without saying what to replace it with. Well, let me first paint the picture. It was originally billed at $940 billion. CBO came out with a new estimate just after 1 year that put it at $1.72 trillion, doubling in just 1 year the estimate. We can't afford that act the way it is. The CBO also estimated it'll cost 800,000 jobs. It adds to our federal government that is already too big and too expensive. 159 new agencies and 16,000 new IRS workers in a healthcare bill. Those are not things that we need to pay for, one, because we can't afford them, or two, to make our healthcare system any better. Yes, let me give you some specifics again. I like the provision that allows me to keep my children on my health care until 26 years old. I mean, my oldest is 18, they're going to college, especially in this job market. I'm for keeping that. Preventative care, absolutely. Not dropping somebody when they get sick. I heard of a story, a couple making $90,000 each, $180,000. They had a child that needed incubation and premature care. They ended up going bankrupt because their health care dropped them after that. That's horrible. Yes, that needs to be in the bill. But we also need things that are going to make, those things are going to make health care more expensive, period. It's not going to make it cheaper. But we do need to make sure it's cheaper, and here's how we do it. We put in some tort reform. When I sit down with doctors and they tell me half the procedures they do are to satisfy lawyers and cover themselves for malpractice lawsuits instead of taking care of you as a patient, we need tort reform that's going to protect doctors doing their best to try to treat you to bring the cost down. Cross-state competition. Another thing that Congressman doesn't like, as I've heard him say in a debate previously. We have cross-state competition with car insurance. My car insurance is out of Texas, and it's some of the best car insurance out there. We can have the competition drive costs down, and we can do it right without jeopardizing your health care. Plenty of ways to make it better and cheaper, not the way Congress did it 2 years ago, and I would vote to repeal it and replace it with something much better that we can afford.
Thank you, sir. Supervisor.
When you push through a piece of legislation for political gain, it is never the best it can be. The only signed piece of legislation that takes $500 billion away from Medicare is this act. This act is funded off a forced mandate, and that is where my issue is. I should not be forced to have a bureaucrat decide what my medical procedures should be. That should be between my physician and myself. I was speaking with a couple of seniors earlier this week, and their #1 issue was, is there going to be someone in an office in Washington, D.C. telling me what type of care I can receive? Medicare absolutely needs to be there for our seniors. They paid into this system. They deserve to have the best care possible. Now, my father-in-law died from a genetic form of Lou Gehrig's disease. Sitting next to him for the months, day in and day out, watching what this man was going through, we got to witness some of the most amazing health care in this state. And he was a cattle rancher. He didn't have a fancy medical plan or someone taking care of him, but we had the absolute best that there was. because of research and development in the state, and because of the type of medical care we have. We absolutely need to address the underinsured and the uninsured issue, but it doesn't need to be rushed through at the cost that we are paying for what we have today. We need to step back and look at how this can be done and implemented without a mandate. Prior to this act being passed, in my little county alone, we had 2 fabulous clinics that served the uninsured and the underinsured. And we utilized the clinics constantly. These weren't funded out of an additional program and out of another mandate. They were funded through programs that already existed. Now we do need to address this issue, but I have to tell you, I am adamantly opposed to being told what I have to buy and spend my money on.
Thank you very much. Question 4. One of the many critical issues facing Congress is the increasing national debt. What is your plan for managing and decreasing this debt? Mr. Tubbs, would you begin?
You bet, thank you. That is my #1 issue. That is why I'm running for Congress. If you are going to vote for Rick Tubbs, it is to send me to Washington, D.C. to help balance this federal budget. $1 trillion of debt every year with no plan to change it, that's a failure of government. And the folks that have been there a long time working on this are not getting it done. It's time for new people, new ideas, people committed to getting it done, willing to take the stands needed, willing to make the risks and then defend what they're trying to do to get it done. Now there is 2 ways that we need to go forward to balance our budget. One is by growing revenue, not by raising taxes. That is not the way. Our federal government needs to live within its means, and coming to you to bail it out with higher taxes is just an admission of failure. We can do better. We grow revenue by growing jobs, by getting the government off the back of the job creator. We have a 3-legged monster killing jobs in America, sending them away. And that is too high of taxation, too high of regulation, and way too much litigation. We need to work on those things. And again, let me give you a specific example. The American Disabilities Act. I think it's a wonderful regulation giving access to our disabled Americans to a better access to normal life. I agree with its intent. The problem is you have the provision that allows people to do personal injury lawsuits if a business is not compliant with the regulation. That's killing jobs, and it's not making the regulation any better. We can enforce that regulation, getting the intent of it much better than by killing jobs, by letting people just win lottery tickets with lawyers, by taking folks to court when their mirror in the bathroom is 2 inches too high. That's some of the things that government can do to work with businesses to grow jobs, get off their back. Now, on the spending side, we need to cut spending. We are spending way too much on things that we don't need to be spending on. There is a lot of waste and duplication in our government that needs to be cut. I read a book called National Suicide that talked about 1,399 programs for rural America, 160 different jobs programs throughout America, a lot of duplication and competing effort. We need to get into government. We need to send people there that have the energy and the desire to go in and make it better today. Cutting spending. We spend a lot of money on things we just shouldn't. $3 million for a study of college kids playing video games down in UC Irvine. I'm a vet. $175 million in your VA on buildings they don't use. $20 billion all across the government on buildings they don't use. $100 billion lost to fraud and waste in Medicare. There is lots to be cut. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Supervisor?
The national debt and spending affects us in more ways than I think we realize. For every dollar we spend, we're borrowing 42 cents. We couldn't operate our households, our cities, our county in this matter. It doesn't work. We can't keep going down this path. And when you have foreign countries holding your debt and you're trying to negotiate trade agreements, What do you think the most important item is when we're trying to open up new market for our domestic producers? We were talking about making it in America and buying American. Our producers need to be able to export their product overseas. They need to be able to be competitive globally. We have to get control of this as soon as we can. Now on the spending, we need to grow revenue, and I specifically say grow revenue for a reason, and we have to cut. We don't have to tax to grow the revenue. The policies of the last 4 years of taxing and spending hasn't created jobs, it's created Solyndra. It's not working anymore, and we have to go down a different path. Because when the economy grows, the tax base grows. Not by increasing the taxes on me and you, but because the economy is growing overall, we have more revenue going in. That was a combination of cutting. I'd say 14 of the 15 departments and feds need serious haircuts and need to get rid of the fraud, the waste, and the duplication. We need to start looking at regulations that are on the book, that are being managed by the bureaucrats, but that we don't need anymore and that we're not using. We need to have a mechanism to track these and remove these so that we don't have these duplicate efforts. We need to work hard and dig in our heels. It's not going to be easy, and it's not going to be the most comfortable thing to go through. But during times like these, belts have to be tightened, and that's what I will do when I'm in Congress.
Thank you very much. Congressman?
Thank you. The deficit's a real problem. And that's why I voted for $4 trillion of deficit reduction. We can do this, but we're going to have to do it in a fair and balanced way. Can't do it all by cuts. The economy is not going to grow fast enough to deal with the deficit. And you certainly don't want to do it with an austerity budget such as was voted out by the Republicans in Congress just less than a month ago. One that would actually increase the deficit by an additional $4 trillion and be 40 years before they'd be in balance. That doesn't work. A fair and balanced way of dealing with the deficit is to make the wise cuts, seek an efficient and effective government program at every level, which I did when I was Deputy Secretary of the Department of Interior. Secretary Babbitt and I took the department from 90,000 employees to 75,000 employees and maintained and improved most of the programs. Fair. You have to protect the poor. You've got to protect the senior citizens. Never ever vote for a budget that takes $80 billion away from seniors who are in nursing homes. But that's what happened less than a month ago. Don't do that. Don't set up a mechanism that would privatize Social Security and turn every senior over to the private insurance companies. Don't do that. And by the way, do keep the IRS agents in place so that they can do what they did this yesterday, and that is take on 107 doctors and nurses across this country that have ripped off more than $400 million of Medicare money. You need those programs in place. We can deal with the deficit. You have to end the war in Afghanistan. If it goes as presently planned, you can count on over $500 billion being spent there in the next 10 years. Bring that war to a close right now. Be wise about what we need to do. Go after the terrorists like a laser beam, wherever they happen to be, in Afghanistan, in the Arabian Peninsula, wherever they happen to be. And finally, you have to reform the tax code. There is no way in the world you'd want a tax code in place that allows Exxon and General Electric and other major corporations to literally pay no taxes in many years and less than 10% in most every other year. That's not a fair tax code. End the tax breaks, as we did without one Republican member in Congress voting to do this. End the tax breaks for corporations offshoring American jobs. Those kinds of tax breaks need to be eliminated. $5 billion of your money given every year in tax subsidies to the big 5 oil companies. End that. Put that money back in. Use it to deficit reduction. There are hundreds of things that we need to do in the tax code to make it fair. And by the way, never, ever vote for a bill that allows those who have $1 million a year income to see their taxes reduced by $350 $94,000 and push the burden onto the working men and women of America, because that's exactly what the legislation that passed 2 weeks ago with every single Republican in Congress voting for. That's not fair, that's not wise, that is not good tax policy, to push the burden down on the poor and to let the super wealthy have even more.
Thank you very much. Mr. Tux, the very first question was, identify the 3 most important issues in your view currently affecting Woodland and Yolo County. And what do you identify to be the 3 most important issues affecting this area in the next 7 years? Describe your plans for addressing these issues.
Sure, thank you. The 3 issues for Yolo and for the country, for me, match up pretty well. My number 1 issue, going back to balancing the budget, that is a burden on every American. Well over $50,000. Every one of you in here has a $50,000 bill on their head right now, because that's not some national debt that's out there. It's your debt. It's my debt. I have a family of 5. I owe $260,000 to cover the debt on my family. That's a local issue as well as a national issue. That's my number 1 issue for Yolo and the country that we have to get under control. And I'm going to take just a little bit to describe some more of how to do that. You bet. Some of the things we need to do in our tax code is simplify and getting rid of some of those tax loopholes and incentives that were bought by special interests for large corporations or the different interests out there that are making sure that they have congressmen or women putting things in the bill so they can get out of their taxes. Absolutely, and this is one Republican that would vote to repeal some of those, or most of those special interest tax loopholes, so we can have a more simplified tax code. Another local issue is the jobs. You know, again, for the country and for Yolo and Woodland, we've got to get our people back to work. Talking to a restaurant owner in Martinez, which was my last area I ran in, he wanted to open a second restaurant, employing 30 new employees. That's as local as it gets. But because of an ADA lawsuit, and because of a frivolous lawsuit when he fired somebody that was stealing money out of the till and came back and sued him for unlawful termination, his lawyer advised him, you'll win this easy, but it's going to cost you $50,000 to $75,000 to fight it, so why don't we just write him a check for $25,000 and see if he'll go away. So being a good businessman, he cuts his losses, but he's not able to open that second restaurant. How many of those things are happening in Woodland today? Because we have too much of a government burden on our small businesses. We've got to address those things so we can get the economy going, whether it's right here in Woodland, in the county of Yolo, in our CD3, and across America. We've got to address them. And then when you have a lot of agriculture around here, that water issue, that is my number 3 issue that we have to solve. It's got to be done in my generation, so my kids don't have a problem they can't fix. Whether it's, again, it's a local issue for Yolo, going through the state. Remember, federal dollars for water issues here in California provides benefits for all Americans. I don't consider that an earmark that I certainly would stand against. I would consider it a wise use of your tax dollars to help solve California's water supply problem here, and I would fight to do that. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. We'll take a break now, reconvening at 10 after 8. And during that time, if the audience would finish those questions so that we can collect those. There is some water over here. And there's also maps out in the foyer that have, they focus on the 3rd District, the 4th Assembly District, the 3rd Senatorial District, and the Board of Supervisors, new districting. So if anybody would like to see those, they're displayed out in the foyer. Thank you.
Chasing them on the freeways is a dangerous way, and sure way to end the campaign.